connected. So on the call today, we've got myself. I'm an account director at Executech. We are a Microsoft managed service provider, and I've also got my colleague Ray, who's going to be joining us as well from our data and AI team. Got the table of contents here, the agenda for today. We're going to dive into Microsoft Copilot. You will see that there is a chat conversation. There's also a question and answer stream as well. If you've got any questions throughout the presentation, please do add them to the question and answer tab. We will try and answer them as we go through the presentation. We have got 10 minutes allocated at the end of this to answer any questions that anybody may have. So I'm just going to set the scene first of all before we start in relation to AI and the charity sector, which we work specifically in. Why are we positioned to talk about this? Well, we've got a number of charitable organisations that we work with, both small, medium and large. There's probably some names there that you recognise as well as some others that you don't. A lot of these organisations are interested in or talking about AI technology, and we've had a lot of insight from the charity sector. So the reality of the charity sector today, before we talk about AI Copilot, what we're seeing is a rising demand. There's tighter funding, there's higher scrutiny, lots of small teams wearing many hats and doing lots of complex work. Trustees are asking tougher questions around risk, impact and value. And most charities, they don't have an innovation problem. What they do have is some type of capacity problem. So there's a lot of misbeliefs that we see when we're talking to charities about AI. Now, the first one is AI is only for big charities. Well, in reality, it's actually the SMB charities that we see who benefit the most from AI technology. With smaller teams, there's smaller complexity and there's more value, believe it or not. The charities that are seeing the quickest wins aren't the biggest, they're generally the most stretched. Second misbelief that we see is that AI means replacing people. AI actually replaces tasks, it doesn't replace value or people. There's no charity that I've worked with that's using AI to remove the compassion from their organisation. They're just using it to remove mundane admin tasks. The third misbelief we see is that you need clean, perfect data in order to deploy AI. Well, the reality is no organisation has perfect data. And what AI does is it actually exposes the problems you already need to fix. So it's not creating chaos. Basically, it shines a light on what the issues and what the problems are. And the fourth misbelief that we see is that if we wait, it will become cheaper and safer. So we already see shadow AI happening in organizations. And when I talk about shadow AI, we're talking about people not having a defined AI strategy for the organization, and staff are just experimenting with products and tools without any governance at all, which is a really big risk. So what I want to do now is I want to give you some examples of some charities that are already using AI. When I speak to a lot of charitable organizations, there's lots of organizations out there that have heard about AI, about the technology, but what they don't have is solid use cases of how they can use that within their organization. So the first and probably the most common example is we helped a small charity to use AI to turn HR safeguarding and IT policies into a simple Q&A tool. So rather than having to go to the HR department or to a safeguarding individual in order to answer a question, we created an agent. We attached that data to the agent, so they could literally go to an agent that would find the answers for them from documentation that they had in the business. So if you imagine you've got people out in the field, there's safeguarding issues, they need to make sure that they make the right decision, they can access this agent remotely and have access and talk to it in natural language and get the right answers to make sure that they can support people in the correct way. Second example that I have is being used for fundraising and bids. So we can take responses and previously submitted bids, we could put them in a secure area, and what we could do is we could create an agent that can look at those past bids. We can give the agent a persona, so we can make that agent a specific fundraising or bid writing agent, and it can then use the previous bids in order to write a response based on a request that's come in. Now, I'd like to think of that agent as almost a graduate that's going to do 80% of the work, create something, and then internally that can then be tailored, and the extra 20% can then be done by a bid writing professional. Now, we've seen benefits of about 30 to 50% of time saved in using this type of technology. The third example that I can give is from a trustee and leadership support perspective. So we can see AI summarizing long papers into one-page briefs. We can help trustees answer questions. So with that, we've seen better board engagement. We've seen improved governance, shorter meetings, and clearer, sharper decisions. And the final example that I can give is service delivery administration. So AI used to summarize case notes or service interactions. So if you're having an interaction with somebody, you can record that session over Microsoft Teams. You could then create a template, and you can then take the information from the meeting, get that summarized in a specific format in a document that you've pre-created. And again, that's having significant time savings on completing documentation from face-to-face meetings that people have had. So these are the real benefits that we're seeing from organizations using this type of technology. And the biggest risk, as I mentioned earlier, that we see isn't companies getting AI wrong, it's just not engaging with it at all. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ray, who's going to take you through specifically Microsoft Copilot, and he's going to give you some use case examples, some demonstrations of how the technology can be used and how to implement that. Thanks, Ray.
Steve, just let me know. I took control. Is the screen still present from your end? You still see it as one whole picture?
Yep.
All right, then let's just continue. So what I want to emphasize, first of all, thanks Steve for the information, but what I want to emphasize is a top-down approach from the perspective of why AI is important in the workplace, all the way to what Copilot is and how it's going to be used, and actually showcasing use cases so you can understand how to start actually navigating this solution and implement it into your everyday work. But at a high level, when we start talking about AI empowerment in the workplace, we need to start thinking about Copilot as this productivity tool that would be our assistant during our actual day-to-day work. So what do I mean by this? We would notice that Copilot, firstly, at a high level, we need to see that it's integrated into our everyday tools and technologies across the M365 environment. And I'll stress what I mean by the M365 environment in a bit. It understands your work context. That's the benefit of having an AI assistant that already knows and is embedded into your data, meaning that it will answer relevant, and give you relevant answers. It knows the context of which you're talking about. It is already giving the answers and its perspective, acting as someone that is working alongside you and knows exactly how you operate. It is extendable. I'll emphasize what I mean by this as just, let's call it foreshadowing of what could be possible beyond Copilot M365. It is customizable. And what do we mean by customizable? We mean that we can leverage agents at work that are actually very important. It will be one of our main subject matters today. It is something that would help users really start to eliminate these repetitive tasks when you start creating agents. Security features of Copilot is something that Microsoft emphasizes. It is one of the main pillars and the differences between it and other AI engines. We'll get to that as well. And as well, we could measure the impact of Copilot, meaning we could see the utilization, who is benefiting from this, who is the, let's say, champion driving this usage, which is very important as well. So you know at a user level who is actually having the best implementation of this solution. Now, just like Steve was saying, we have the capability to maximize the return on investment when using Copilot. What we've seen from surveys that were conducted by Microsoft, even our own experience, is that prior to adopting an AI engine, we noticed that we have seen struggles in efficiency, lack of productivity, people wasting their time in plain sense on tasks that are mundane that could be tackled using AI. And this is exactly why we would want to emphasize the use of Copilot to, let's say, significantly change the workflow. And when we have tested, and this is a study done by McKinsey, when we have tested and seen a sample of 100 companies or so that have implemented this AI solution, we've seen a couple of key factors changed when starting to use Copilot, such as we were able to redesign the workflow. So half of the people that were using this actual AI solution were able to reconfigure the way that they do their daily tasks, which is exactly the point that we're looking at. High performers, what do you say by high performers? We mean people that are actually utilizing this license. We have seen them set better efficiency rates, and this could be, again, something of a success criteria that is tangible, especially when you measure how you used to do your job before AI and how you are actually doing it after AI. Just think about it as time saved. And it is important to note at an organizational level, 2/3 of the organizations that were sampled by McKinsey are at least at the adoption stage of Copilot. And what do we mean by this? It means that organizations aren't hesitating to actually start to embed the solution. They want to leverage it. There is excitement, there is experimentation behind it, and this is a very good driving point. So you know, as users, that this is something that we want to leverage so we don't lag behind the competition, and it is something that is genuinely easy to start using. So that being said, something that I always mention if you hear me talking is transforming productivity, efficiency, so on and so forth. Where do these pillars actually, let's say, where are they targeted? Where do we start seeing success in organizations across the multiple different users that might be opted into and start using this solution? We are actually looking at unlocking productivity across universal tasks. And what do we mean by this? You see in front of you organizations, let's say the most common departments across sample organizations, whether it is from the HR department, the legal department, so on and so forth. Every one of those as a sample, okay, what you see in front of you isn't just strictly where Copilot works, obviously, but as a sample, it is where Copilot, we've seen success metrics behind it. And that being said, we are not just implementing Copilot at a business unit level, but we are actually implementing Copilot at a business function level. And there is where we could tackle these key departments' work processes and actually transform them and change them into something that could be, again, enhanced using Copilot. So what do I mean by this? It means you could infuse Copilot into the recruitment process of HR. You could start to have it leverage drafting contracts when you're talking in the legal context. You could help it with customer engagement, let's say, let's say in your case, when you're tackling communications with donors, preparing documents relevant to those communications. This is where Copilot thrives. We're not just strictly looking again at these domains, but these are a good sample, so you know that Copilot isn't a one-trick pony. It is customizable. It actually reflects the work that you want to do and redesigns it, all based on the input and the usage that you actually put and the work you put into when starting to leverage this solution. Now, that being said, let's just start to go deeper into the conversation and start to differentiate some, let's say, common misconceptions about Copilot. What do I mean by this? Maybe many of you have seen Copilot prior to even having, let's say, the full-fledged version, the premium version. You need to know that there is a difference between the Copilot Chat that we see and know, and this is already available solution on the market, just like you use maybe ChatGPT, and this would be the free version behind Copilot, and the Copilot M365, which is the premium version of Copilot. And this is where Copilot M365 would be embedded into your data, connected to your online data sources. So whether we're talking about SharePoint or cloud drives, you will see this all in action. I won't be talking theoretically. The difference is how much power and how much, let's say, tools you could leverage between the premium and the free version. But that being said, I will just give a glance on what the free version, the one that's accessible right now, as soon as you open copilotchat.com, you could see that you would have two experiences that you can opt into. One is the work experience. Here is where you would sign in with your work domain. So let's say at axwitech.com, that's the email that I would use. And you have the other experience, which is more of a personal experience, meaning you might use your own personal email to, again, log into Copilot and start leveraging this readily available AI solution on the market. To just show the difference, because I usually get asked the question at a high level of what does it basically look like when we're using the personal or the work experience. The personal experience, again, it is limited. You are chatting with a generative AI, meaning it just answers you in a natural language. You have questions, personal questions. Maybe you want to know what the recipe for the best brownies are. This is where you start engaging with the personal experience with Copilot. For the work experience, you could have, again, the ability now to upload certain data sets. You are uploading them. They're not already connected to your environment. Copilot isn't directly reading the data. You need to feed it that data. You have the ability to create limited agents, meaning that you are not now like the full capabilities of agents that we will see today. I will distinguish the difference between them and the free version, so you know what's the difference between the premium and the basic license. But again, it is something that you could use as part of your work for the work experience, with the ease of mind that you are using a safe and secure AI engine. All right. So our main subject today is Copilot M365, the premium version. And just for anyone that isn't aware what M365 means, we are encompassing the host of applications that you see in front of you today. Of course, most common ones would be Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, etc. This is where you would be able to, let's say, use and like get the most out of Copilot. Out of experience, I think this is where 90% of the users in an organization start to actually interact with Copilot. It's these sets of applications, okay? But M365 means that it is strictly looking at these applications. Of course, there's updates always rolling out within these applications to enhance Copilot. So maybe if you've had a workshop around Copilot a year ago, new features are actually now embedded into Copilot so that you know that what you see today is something that you might have not seen a year ago. Additionally, just as a common question, frequently asked questions that I get. Seeing, let's say, if you use Power BI, for example, that's a different type of Copilot. If you're using Copilot for different functionalities with certain automation aspects, that would also be a different type of Copilot. And I'll glance at it in a second so you get the full-fledged picture of how the Copilot stack actually looks like. But to actually know what Copilot M365 is built on, you are like the most important pillar is to know that there are two domains within the Copilot that Copilot operates in, the work and the web station. All right. When you use the free experience of Copilot, you are strictly looking at the web experience. Now, you might ask, what is the web experience? It is, again, just like chatting to any AI engine on the market. You're simply asking your questions, not related to your data sources. You're getting back the relative answer that you might be looking for. But on the other hand, if you're using the work experience is where Copilot is connected to your data. It's where Copilot actually knows the files that you're talking about. It knows the people in your organization. It already can interpret your emails on the go. No need to re-explain. You'll see it actually in action, embedded in all these tools that I mentioned. And this is where Copilot uses something called the work IQ. And this is where it fetches the intelligence about your data to give you the relevant answers. Now, from a technology and security perspective, this is where I would want to emphasize the difference between Copilot and other AI engines on the market. And we'll get to that in a second. Copilot has a stack of technology that starts out with the Copilot Chat, the basic version that I was mentioning earlier. And on top of that, we move to the Copilot M365 features, which is today's subject matter. This is the premium version of Copilot. We can also see and leverage the Microsoft agents that are also interacting with Copilot M365. This is where our main demonstration will look at, agents at work. But on top of that, Copilot has extensibility features. So this is the point of having, let's say, more advanced technology incorporated and working with Copilot M365 to tackle more advanced use cases. And on top of that, with the tools such as Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry, we have the ability to connect to third-party systems. So we're not just limited to using the tools that Copilot, that Microsoft offers. If you want the features of this AI engine embedded and actually working alongside third-party systems, such as if you're using Oracle databases or SAP systems, you can have Copilot interact with these systems. And now you're using a safe and secure AI engine along with a third-party system. So this is the stack that could extend and use Copilot as a base and connect to things beyond the M365 and Microsoft environment. Now, that being said, this is one difference that we look at when we compare Copilot to other AI solutions on the market. But the other main difference that I don't want to get too technical about is the security aspect that I keep mentioning. I'll take an example. I'll stop here and take an example, okay? When we're looking at, let's say, I'll use ChatGPT as an example for my following statement. If users are hopping onto ChatGPT, taking a private document, let's say your internal policies and procedures, uploading them to ChatGPT, ChatGPT will interpret this policy, answer the relevant questions you have about this policy. Maybe you're looking for a certain statement and so on, and revert back to you with the appropriate answer. That's great. That's AI being used. But the way ChatGPT works is that it'll retain this information. So it'll retain your policy, your questions, and the answers, and use them to its own, let's say, back-end knowledge and for other purposes that we are not even aware about. And this is something that does not happen when we're using Copilot. This is why we encourage Copilot, because we know our data is safe when we are starting to leverage this AI engine. The way Copilot works, firstly, when we say Microsoft Graph, it means it's connected to your data inherently as soon as you have the license. But in a nutshell, not to take it or make it more complex, when we start to ask Copilot a question and it reaches this LLM, which is the brain of Copilot, let's keep it at that, and the answer is pushed back to the user, so you get that answer about your policy and its questions. Great. Copilot will not retain any of this data. Copilot will scrub the information from its own, let's say, brain and processing. It won't hold this information to train on that private data set that you have. All it would do is answer you, revert back with your answer, and it will even forget from its back end that the information you used. So nothing would be retained, not even by Microsoft. In a nutshell, for everyone, just to get the big picture, your data is always secure within your environment. It'll never transition outside your environment. That means you're always in control of your data. Okay, you have the full rights and control over all the types of data that we will see in our live demonstration that Copilot interacts with. Your data is not used to train the model. Copilot is trained on an independent data set that has nothing to do with organizational data. And think about it in this plain, simple terms. You're already trusting, let's say, Microsoft with your other tools and using other Microsoft applications, which is inherently something like Outlook, where you are uploading documents and sending them back and forth with colleagues. Copilot inherits the same security measures and privacy measures that we see across all the Microsoft ecosystem. And this is something that you know, since you're already trusting Microsoft, you could also trust this AI model built by Microsoft. Okay? Now, one last step and subject before I move on to my live demonstration. I have a very important factor that I encourage for any users that actually use any AI engine, to keep it simply. When you're interacting with a certain AI engine, of course, today we're talking about Copilot, it is important to have these four main pillars always covered. So you need to have the goal clear in your prompt, meaning what's the end subject, what's the end goal that you're looking at, what are the results that you need from this prompt. The context, meaning you need to feed it as much details. You might want it to act as in a certain role, act as a organizational CEO. Give it this context. The source information, maybe you're uploading a website link, or maybe you're using your own Excel files. So the source information would help get you a more precise answer. And the expectations, meaning maybe you want it to be an executive brief style answer. Maybe you want it to help you or give you a certain type of table as an answer. It's up to you, but as long as you have these four main pillars covered up, this is very important to leverage inside your own prompts. Now, that being said, we already need to know that Microsoft offers sample prompts across all the places that Copilot is available in. You'll see these as, let's say, a starter or a helper kit as soon as you're trying to use Copilot. And this is important because for new users and even for relatively, let's say, old users that have been using Copilot for a while, it just gives you a better idea of things and ways Copilot could help you that you might not have been aware about. And this is important because at the end of the day, learning more about Copilot is something important, and Microsoft helps with this learning journey. That being said, I'm going to move on to my live demonstration. So Steve, I'm gonna steal the screen again, just if you would allow me a moment, and we'll hop on to our main demonstration points. Again, any questions, I'll be tackling them at the dedicated timing at the end of the session. That way, everyone would be having their questions answered. So don't you worry about that. Now, this is the main interface that I like to have my main subject and my main discussion about, which is the Copilot M365 application itself. It's the native application, as you can see on my screen, that actually something that as soon as you have the premium license, you could install this application just like you install Outlook or so on. And this is the, let's say, the most powerful place to leverage Copilot. Everyone should use Copilot from this exact tool, and you will actually see how it operates across and connects to all types of M365 data. That being said, earlier I stressed that Copilot has the work and the web station. So let's say if you're using the free version of Copilot, you won't be able to access that workstation. This would not exist. You would have something which is only the web station. And how do you use the web station? All right. The web station is simply, again, asking questions that might not be relevant to your data and is about information readily available online. So let's take an example. Are you aware of a company called Equitech in the UK, let's say? Maybe this is the first subject matter I want Copilot to access, which is information, again, readily available on the web, but I want this AI tool to answer me in a natural language, like I'm having a conversation with someone and giving me this insight about Equitech, which is our company. This is where I could start to have the chat, start to interact with it. None of my data is being used. Sources are always there, so you know how or where Copilot got this information from. You could, as well as use the follow-up questions that Copilot dictates for you. Maybe this is something you didn't think about. Great. Copilot is offering you that exact statement as a follow-up question that you might want to ask. On top of that, you could use the dictation feature of Copilot. Maybe you don't want to use your hands. Fine by me. Start using the dictation function or a general voice chat, something like you're actually chatting with a real life person that is answering you on the go based off of the questions you're answering it. On top of that, these are all features that I'm showing right now, regardless of the web or workstation. These are all features available whenever you're chatting with Copilot. On top of that, I could actually start to chat with Copilot alongside my colleagues about a certain subject. Meaning, if I go ahead and add Steve Rudd to this conversation, it'll automatically open up a chat on Teams with Steve and Copilot. That way you could see the chat history of what I was engaging on with Copilot. And we can both interact and ask Copilot questions about the subject matter that we want to tackle. That way, there is no, again, waste of time trying to share the conversation with Steve, having him gain the insight, reverting back to me with the information. Everything is done on the go. Here we are starting to see the differences between, let's say, again, other AI engines and how Copilot is embedded into your system. That being said, this is how, let's say, the web features work and the general features of Copilot that exist. In the workstation, firstly, just like I said, if I press this See More button, this is where I see that Copilot has a couple of suggested prompts that I could leverage again at any time to start getting ideas on what I can do. Some of the suggested prompts are personalized. And what do I mean by this? So it's asking me, when is my next meeting with Naeem? Naeem is one of my colleagues. The way Copilot knows this is it's, again, embedded into my system, and it knows who I am and who I work with and what's my usual operating style and how I usually conduct my daily business. Beyond that, we have something called the prompt gallery, as you can see here at the bottom of my screen. The prompt gallery is again where I get a whole host of prompts that I could try out with Copilot, things that I haven't thought about earlier, and things that actually I can start to leverage based on my, let's say, end goal. So maybe I want a task that has to do with create. These are a couple of ideas of what Copilot can do related to the creations or the idea of creating something. You should check this out and leverage the prompt gallery because it is something that, again, enhances your idea of what Copilot can do. It's very important to start using. But let's start to see actually Copilot in action. So let's take a couple of prompts that I want to use so we start to understand the bigger picture here. So when I'm talking to the Copilot regular chat, it's a prompt box, just like you've seen anywhere else with any other AI. It's a conversational interface. It knows my organizational data and no customization is needed here. The way it knows my data is I can check this, and as soon as I press the add content button, you will see that I can start to add work content. And this is where I know that Copilot knows the people in my organization that I interact with often, the files that I have in my M365 environment. These are just the most recent ones. Meetings that I've conducted could be, again, queried and referred to right here in the chat, since they are, again, part of my M365 environment, part of my Teams and Outlook meetings, as well as emails that say that actually are there and can be fetched by Copilot to ask the relevant questions about. We'll take a couple of examples, okay? As a point to highlight something again that is important when using Copilot, it is accessing these files, for example, and the reason it is accessing these files is because everything that you see in front of you here is on cloud data, meaning it is on your OneDrive information or your SharePoint information. And this is how Copilot works. When I add my work content, I could attach cloud files, which is directly going to reroute me to my SharePoint sites, channels, and files under these SharePoint sites. Or if I'm uploading images myself, it is going to refer to my OneDrive files, which are uploaded successfully to OneDrive. Now, let's start to think about having a couple of prompts. So let's say you just received some quarterly reports, all right? And you want to flag some risks. So you want a couple of pinpointed subjects to be highlighted to you with Copilot. I placed my prompt and I can simply start to add the content that relates to my prompt. So I can either upload it directly from my OneDrive, so I can go there and pick it out myself. I could attach a cloud file, which is again something that I need to search my SharePoint site about, or I can search it myself manually with typing out a couple of keywords that I might remember that are included in the name of the file. So let's say I remember it's called something about sector chat, quarterly report or so on. So it should be this one. Great. I found it. I push out the prompt and I wait for the results. As a disclaimer, I guess this is just sample data, it's dummy data sets for the sake of our presentation today. Has nothing to do with any of our organizations, but it's just placed so we can get the picture of how I can prompt and interact with Copilot. Anyway, reverting back to the answer. So what is Copilot returning here? It reads the reports, it returns a structured summary covering performance highlights, risk callouts, the next quarter priorities in a concise, easy to scan format. So I'm getting the picture about this data set without even having to access that data set. Maybe you're going into a meeting within the next 5 minutes, so you just want that quick outlook on this data, and you don't have time to check it yourself or even assign someone to do the work for you. You're asking Copilot as a productivity tool to start to do this work for you. Let's take another example. Maybe I want to look at one of my team directory and actually tell me how many people are in each department and who are these managers, right? So I can connect it to a file that has this information. So what do I need to do? Again, adding work content. I could search out the Excel name because this type of data set happens to be an Excel file. So I remember it has to do with team directory. So I just type out a couple of letters. Oh, okay, it's this one. I pick it out, and now I can push out the relevant question. What you see in front of you is, just for the sake of my example, trying to push out prompts with one file at a time, meaning I'm not looking at having multiple data sets in the same prompt, but that is still doable. Now, what you see in front of you here is just the back end of Copilot working. This is all jargon that you shouldn't be even worried about, but the result that I have here is that we are looking at the analysis of the team directory, giving me a headcount breakdown, identifying the managers and their email addresses. So I am now, again, more capable of talking to the right people related to my actual query here. But let's say, again, just like I mentioned, I want to combine multiple asks with multiple files when prompting Copilot. So I tell it to look at these three files, which I will reference in a second, and to give me the report, the minutes of meeting, the departments under the most pressure, and any key people I should be aware about. Now, simply referencing the files is the next step. So I would say the quarterly report is something I'm looking at. So, yep, this is one. Let's take the second file, because again, I'm referencing multiple files at the same time. So I want the minutes of meeting for the fund raising. Apologies, my spelling might not be top tier. Fundraising and development. So yep, this is the second file I remember the name of. And the third file I want to get is the team directory, the one I just mentioned. So yep, this is the third one. Pushing out this prompt with three different types of files, something Copilot can handle. It can handle way more than this, but just so you get the gist of things, this is where I can compile all this information. So Copilot will synthesize all these three files simultaneously, cross-reference performance data with the meeting of minutes actions, the team structure, and it gives you this assessment. So it's identifying now the most under pressure departments. So, and along with their key stakeholders. So you could see here which departments are under the most pressure. It lists them out. Why finance is not under the most pressure. People to be aware about, bottom line executive takeaways. Now you have the complete picture about your subject, what you ask Copilot to do in a nutshell. Again, we're not limited to one type of file or one single file to be uploaded. I can mention people in my organization. I could tell them to add work content, let's say one of the latest decks that I'm working with related to my line manager, which is Minas, and I can tell it based on what Minas told me, what should I update the deck with. I am referencing here a person alongside an actual PowerPoint presentation, two different types of things. So I get the outcome that I'm looking for, which is what am I supposed to do as an action under my line manager's assigned tasks. There you go. Copilot will interpret this. It might look at relevant emails that have to do with this deck. It might look at relevant chats that have occurred between me and my land manager relating to this actual, again, subject, and start to give me the things that I need to change. So here he told me to reframe the deck. He told me the concrete updates that need to happen, the timelines that need to be changed, so on and so forth. I don't need to go about getting the scattered information compiled into one place manually, checking all these chats, going about my emails. All of this is done right here, right now, with a simple prompt using Copilot. the Copilot workstation in specific. Okay. Something I want to highlight is, again, I could schedule prompts. Maybe I want to push one out in a couple of hours. I don't need it right now. No worries. And I could also pick out the type of engine that the model of Copilot is using. So in the back end, I want something of a quick response. Imagine you're in a meeting and I just want Copilot to answer me exactly what I wanted to answer. I don't want it to think too long. I just want an instantaneous result. You can pick out the models. It's up to you and the need behind your actual like queries. Okay. That being said, this is the main point of using Copilot M365, okay, from the chat experience. The other subject matter I want to cover is agents at work. Agents is what I mean by customizable, okay? I'm gonna keep it simple, okay? The main point of using agents is to cover repetitive tasks. And covering repetitive tasks is something that I think ideally everyone and every user wants to do and wants someone to take that task away from them and to do it at a faster and easier way. So let's say you're part of the HR department, part of the finance department, and you have these manual, laborious tasks that take so much of your time that you might want to tackle them right here using an agent. In simpler terms, agents are something that you can build sort of like when you hire a dedicated personnel to do a dedicated job. So when you hire someone, obviously, you give them a job description, you give them a title, you give them the exact asks and needs and goals and success criteria behind their job, and you give them the documents and the data that they might need to actually accomplish their job. That being said, agents are exactly that. You're hiring someone to do certain tasks for you at a certain level. The way to build agents is rather simple. You have two ways to do it. The describe section, which is, let's say, telling Copilot in a regular chat the end goal behind the agent you want to build to cover your repetitive tasks. Or, second way to do it is to configure the agent yourself. And what do I mean by this? It means similar to the analogy that I gave, you give the agent a title, a description of their job, the job instructions and the job description, and the data it needs to accomplish this job. Personally, the configure section is where I could play around more with the agents and give them a more thorough understanding of what I need because I can manually fill out these parts and it's rather simple to fill them out. And I'll show you a cheating method that I use when filling the sections out. Or if you want to just first get the idea behind agents in a quicker manner, let's use the describe section. The describe section will automatically populate the configure section. So let's see it in action with a simple statement and an example just to get the configure section populated. So let's say I want to create an agent that helps me with my donor status tracking and updates about their recent payments. Let's take that as an example. Of course, the example that I just gave right here is generic. It's simple. When you're engaging with Copilot to describe the agent that you want to build, please give it more details. Try to be as thorough as possible when you are explaining to Copilot the agent you want so you get a more customized output. What you see in front of you here is a simple statement, so I'll get a simple agent. But it encompasses the idea that I was just mentioning, that you want to use an agent to help you keep tracking about your donors. Simple idea, repetitive task, build an agent. That being said, on the right-hand panel, you'll see the preview of the agent. So it'll look like this as soon as I publish it. And here I could see that Copilot already configured everything for me. Again, one last time, the name of the agent, a quick description just to get the idea across of what this agent is about. Apologies. The instructions. This is the job description, quote unquote. So here you're seeing the objective behind the agent, any guidelines, any limitations, the type of data it will work with, specific instructions it needs to abide by, everything that it needs to do to accomplish this job, and the purpose behind the creation, the purpose behind why you created this agent. That being said, one of the most important sections in this configuration panel is the knowledge source. So the knowledge source is where you would feed Copilot the information that it needs to accomplish the job. Let's say I'm talking about the donor status tracker. This is the point of the agent. You need to feed it with information related to your donors, maybe the payment milestones related to each donor, maybe the current status tracker of each donor, the names, the emails, so on and so forth. And where you would find this information would be, again, similar to where I was connecting the data in my chat experience with Copilot previously. You are looking at using your SharePoint sites, maybe files or SharePoint libraries inside these sites. You could connect your emails, your Teams, your chat messages. You can connect to maybe specific files at a time. I just want this simple, straight to the point PowerPoint presentation. All of this would encompass what the knowledge source of this agent would be. This is the data that it would use to answer your questions. Of course, on top of that, you could add a layer of website searches. Maybe you are looking at a specific URL that you want Copilot to use, or you want it to access the whole bunch of information online. It's up to you. It depends on the needs of the agent. It also depends on the needs if you want to create content with this agent. Maybe you don't want it to use anything that has, or you don't want it to create any document. So you don't tick this button on or off. It's fine. Suggested prompts is something that you could place on your own. These would be always popping up when you create the agent. They are there just so if you don't want to retype the prompt, you could simply just press this once and it'll keep doing it over and over. No need to retype and re-explain your prompt. Again, they are in a simple format now because of a simple description that I gave Copilot. As soon as you're done, I'm happy. I can create this agent. I can actually, here at this point in time, additionally, share this agent with other users. There's two limitations that need to be noted when I'm sharing an agent. Firstly, people that I share this agent with, so they could utilize it as well. So I create it once, other people share it. The point of utilizing or sharing an agent is, the limitations behind sharing an agent is the people receiving this agent have to have a Copilot premium license, just like I do right here. And the people that are using this agent additionally need to have the ability to actually access the knowledge data sets connected to this agent. In simpler terms, imagine I work with this exact PowerPoint, okay? And this exact PowerPoint, I only have access to. I have never gave permission to anyone to access or use this file. So if I share this agent with this file attached in the knowledge source, and I go ahead and share it to Steve, Steve will not be able to use the agent properly because he has not been given permission to access these files. If I do, prior to share the agent, if I do actually grant Steve the access rights, he will be able to start using the agent. So always think that Copilot, even within your organization, is respecting the permissions, the access rights that already exist within your organization. So that way, again, no one is looking at information across the organization. You're looking at what you already have access to. And this is something vital to know. Let's see this just agent that I created for the sake of our demonstration today. That's finalized. And just again, this is for it's an agent that acts as an intelligent knowledge hub for the finance team in a charity. It answers your questions, searches relevant policies, looks at your projects, it documents whatever you wanted to document based on this knowledge source, the projects, the operational guidance. So I have a couple of prompts here. Let's just tackle a couple of one. Maybe I want to cross document the project tracker and the KPI dashboard. I don't need to reference files the way I did in the regular chat. This is due to having the knowledge source already fed the relevant data sets in the backend when I created the agent. So in the agent creation step, I already uploaded the project tracker and the KPI dashboard. And if I open these Excel files, for example, make changes on them, and they're connected to the agent, the changes will automatically be reflected as soon as I save that sheet. The agent will automatically interpret the new data that you incorporated into that Excel sheet. So always think that everything is live, everything is going to be up to date. So here again, I am looking at the cross-document analysis. Copilot cross-references both files, provides coherent analysis comparing the KPI trends against individual project statuses, and it might flag any misalignments or patterns it might recognize that are worth noting. So you could see the dashboard status, what the project tracker suggests about the schedules, a breakdown of the schedules. Does this line up with the KPI numbers? Yes or no? Inconsistencies, so on, so forth, and recommendations. Suggested prompts will always be there by Copilot, and this is exactly what we're looking at to leverage the contextual awareness of Copilot. A second example, maybe something at a lower level, maybe I want the approval threshold for a certain budget in a certain sector. Again, this is just for the sake of our example today. Copilot will give me this threshold based on the finance policy that I have. So maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 10,000, whatever is in the policy. Copilot already has this information. It is feeding off of this information, and I'm good to go. Okay, this is the point of agents that I have created. I hope the idea is clear. Again, feel free to drop questions in the chat and we'll tackle them accordingly. Now, one thing worth noting is that I just created my own agents. Spot on, great. But there are agents that Microsoft have created for the users that are using the premium license. Okay. That being said, I could see that Copilot is actually I have agents built by Microsoft. No, apologies. I have Copilot agents built by Microsoft, such as the most important ones that I've seen leveraged from the market are the researcher agent, the analyst agent, and the workflows agent, which is still under the Frontier program. This just means it's still under testing because updates keep rolling out. So it's just for the users to start to try things out and revert with feedback to Microsoft. But let's just see these three in action before I move to a different subject matter. And let's start with, let's say, the researcher agent. Okay, I think it's a good way to kick things off. All right. Yesterday, I ran a prompt with the researcher agent, and I'll tell you why I did it exactly yesterday. The researcher agent conducts deep, structured research on any topic. Okay, it uses real-time web sources. You can get comprehensive research report style, almost a thesis report data. So you can actually start to dig deep into the information that you might be looking at when you are engaging on a certain topic. So here I am looking at the AI adoption digital transformation trends in nonprofit organizations. So I asked it for this heavy prompt, so it's a lengthy, long, detailed question, I use this researcher. It'll ask me relevant follow-up questions. So maybe it just knows exactly what it should look for, do any final last second refinements before it moves on and actually reverts back with this research paper. You could see how lengthy it is with certain metrics, views of all this data, references at the end of all these pieces of information. You are getting the full-fledged picture about that subject matter within the researcher, and now you could start to pinpoint whatever you need. Maybe you need this exact information from this exact source. Maybe you want to drill down into the strategic, resilient deployment issues that might be related to that subject matter. It's up to you and how you want to continue this research process. This is where you would conduct, let's say, market studies, so on and so forth. The analyst agent, the second agent that I want to talk about, that Microsoft has created and offered people with the premium license. Again, I ran a prompt yesterday related to an analysis of a certain data set. Out of experience, what I've seen from other people that I've engaged with about Copilot, the researcher, the analyst agent is usually used when you pair a prompt with actual heavy data set, usually in an Excel file format where you have multiple figures to look at, a lot of, let's say, heavy analysis that's done in this Excel sheet. So there's a lot of information that is encompassed in this Excel sheet, and there's a lot of information and questions that I might have about this Excel sheet that I want Copilot to work through. So think about the agent as it's designed for deep data analysis. It will answer natural language questions about complex, multi-layered analytical data sets, and it will return everything to you based on, let's say, the uploaded Excel sheet that I did yesterday. So it takes some time to reason. So it completed it in 63 steps, which takes a significant amount of time. So we're talking about 3 to 4 minutes compared to the quick answer that you might get when you're chatting with Copilot on a normal basis. But you can see here the information is provided. So I told it to get me a multitude of things, but the output that Copilot returns is an exhaustive multi-sheet analysis for covering the regional and product revenue rankings, year-on-year growth, performance metrics, customer segments and account manager performance, financial overruns, so on and so forth. All of this information right here through just simply asking Copilot one question. You can see it's exhaustive if you want it to be. It could be straightforward if you want it to be as well. It's dependent on what you might be looking for. I can even ask it a follow-up question to simply just tell me, based on all this analysis it just did, to identify any high-risk areas across the organization with a brief explanation about these points. So it'll give you exactly that. Again, it's up to you and the end goal that you're looking for. Third and last agent I want to talk about is the workflows. The workflows agent is something, again, relatively new that Microsoft has released. Of course, updates are continuously rolling out. This is one of the most important ones. Workflows, we saw with Microsoft, the first time I can do certain automation tasks within my M365 environment. Not to go too technical into this, but previously, if I wanted to do anything that has to do with automation, meaning not pressing buttons, no manual intervention like the agents I created, everything done in the back end with minimal intervention from a user. If I wanted to do all that, I had to use another application called Power Automate. Won't go into that. What Microsoft did is that if you want some certain things to be automated within your M365 environment, you could use this workflow agent. Okay? That being said, let's just see the examples that are already present that Copilot can do for you when you are using this workflow agent. Usually, you describe the automation that you want it to do within your M365 applications. The way you describe it is as follows. Let's just take this prompt as an example, as a sample for you to get the idea behind it. What is this prompt or automation task asking of the workflow agent to do? We are looking for this agent to access a SharePoint list, which a SharePoint list shows like the weekly items and actions certain people need to do within a certain time range. So you want this agent to access this list every Monday morning, check the tasks, check what people are late on, what is overdue, take these emails and names of these people, share an email with them asking for the latest updates, and revert back to you. Okay, so the people revert back to you with the relevant answers. All of this is done when I simply set up this agent with the ask that I'm looking for, and you have nothing else to do. You would sit back every Monday morning. This email would be pushed out with the accurate information, and people will start reverting back to you with the relevant answers. So you don't have to go about doing the manual labor of checking the list, checking who's late, asking them individually what's going on, and wait for their answer. Everything is done in the backend. It's up to you and how you would experiment with this workflow agent. Give it a try, start to see the capabilities of its automation features, and go around actually, let's say, exploring the limitations of the workflows agent. Okay, I will jump to the specific Copilot features in the different applications. So I'll start out with Excel. And if there is some time left, I'll go over a couple of extra features in this chat, but I don't want to, again, exhaust you with this application. Let's just start to move on to the Excel sheets, the Word documents that Copilot can help you with, and so on. Let's say within Excel, okay? I have this Excel sheet that actually is looking at data that has to do with employee performance, the contracts, monthly KPIs, leave attendance reports. Again, generic data just for the sake of our example. I'll close this one. And you can see as soon as we have Copilot that it is always accessible when I open the application. You see it up top to the right. I can simply press on it and it will automatically activate if you see this button, okay, it's called the Excel agent tool. The Excel agent tool is something where Copilot can, let's say, really dig deep into your data, make changes for you, and get you the tasks and results that you might be looking for. Okay. So let's say, as an example, employee performance, you would have a performance score related to each employee. Maybe I want Copilot to add a new column. Okay. Let me push out the prompt and explain it. You want Copilot to add a new column about the performance category that these people fall under. So if they are 4.5 and above, they're high performers. If they are 2.5 and below, they need improvement. So you want Copilot to do this task for you instead of trying to pinpoint, formulate things, try to identify them manually. I'll just tell Copilot the end goal that I'm looking for, and I would want it to revert back to me with the proper information and insight. So let's say this guy is doing well, this guy needs some manual work, this guy needs more, let's say, development processes, up to you and the type of ask that you're looking for. And it'll tell you the count behind each employee, the performance category they fell under, what was done. So it's walking you through the logic behind what it applied. Okay? This is not simply giving you the output and leaving you lost on the results. It's explaining the results for you. Let's take another example. Let's say for vendor contracts, okay? For vendor contracts sheet, I want something maybe in a simpler ask to highlight some rows where the data, where days to expiry is less than a certain amount, or if it falls under a certain between two amounts, I want it in a different color. Give me this visual insight on the go so I know what I'm supposed to look at when I'm skimming through this vendor contract sheet. Okay. So let's say this is from the perspective of manipulating content, adding more content, but maybe I want something to give me an overview of every single sheet that is within this Excel file. So I could ask Copilot something, okay, that I ran earlier. So I could see here, I could tell Copilot to use all the sheets from this file, generate a summary data sheet, giving me dashboards, and that will help me gain a better insight about these data sheets, all within asking Copilot one simple statement to develop all this data for me on the go. So you could see the reasoning behind what it's doing. So the first step, sorry, the first step is interpreting each individual sheet on its own, giving me the most important outlook that I need to have about these sheets, starting to build each dashboard step by step, and then moving on to giving me the final outlook that I should have related to this whole Excel file with all of this scattered information across all the different sheets. So I let it load for a second so you can see how it's working alongside you, step by step, giving you a clear picture about everything in detail that are within each data sheet and the output that you're looking for. So let it just run for a second so we see the results live. So it has covered 4 of the 5 sheets. Now it has the 5th sheet as well. I don't encourage anyone to start manipulating or changing the data set while the prompt is still running. You could see here that it hasn't stopped yet. It's still generating the data sets. So I will just leave it do its job. Don't manipulate anything up until it's done. So what I wanted to generate in front of you is the dashboard views. So you see like different tables and visuals that it could present. You could see here it already switched to chart design, so it's working on them. And it's telling you that it's adding visuals in real time. So I'll let it set things up. It's normal course of business when you're seeing some time being taken. Again, it's analyzing 5 sheets at a time, and then you could start to see the different views that it might have related to each set of data. Leave requests by type, vendor contract and value, let's say, the project summary and budget spend, and now it has almost completed things, so you get the bigger picture of what it has done. Everything is organized, easy to see, easy to lay out the understanding behind each chart and data set, and that way you're good to go. Any alerts and action items that you need to do, it has done the full analysis for you. Great way to get the job done in a quick manner. That's the goal of using Copilot in Excel. Again, I hope you got the picture behind using Copilot in Excel. Questions, please drop them in the chat. I'll be moving on to a different Copilot functionality. Now I want to check for this exact call. Let's see if you can still see my screen that I have the actual Copilot feature embedded in my Teams meeting. If I do click on that, I can start to gain insight about a meeting that's being recorded during the actual session. So no need to wait for it to be concluded. I can ask Copilot to recap the meeting so far. If I am part of the organization that has set the meeting, I can access these Copilot features. No one, no one would be able to see what prompts I'm pushing with Copilot. So these aren't visible to you or James, they're visible to me. Let's say I'm a silent participant that joined late. I just want to know what was being spoken about all this time. You could see it's running through everything that I've been discussing since the recording of the meeting has started and giving you a comprehensive overview about what maybe has concluded, the questions that are being asked. This way, you don't need to go about asking Copilot what was discussed during that session, what was being focused on, after the session has concluded. You can simply do it during the meeting. No need to even ask your colleagues. Everything is right here and right now. Other features that are available, again, is maybe if you want Copilot to turn on interpreter. I won't do this right now simply because interpreter just switches in a live meeting the language of the speaker to the language that you would want to hear the speaker in. So let's say I am speaking in English, you are a French speaker, you want it to be, you want me to be heard in French. You can use an interpreter as long as you have the license and you start to hear me out in French. So it's live translation of the meeting. These features aren't only available when I am looking at Copilot in during a meeting, but as well as I can use it when the meeting has concluded. So you could see here, let's say again, you're part of the organization that has set the meeting, you've joined the meeting has concluded. I could go around and start to view the recap of the meeting. When I do access the recap of the meeting, let me share this screen. You might be familiar with how things look like here. This is a 360 overview of a meeting. So you could see the people that spoke, when did they speak, the topics and the chapters that are time-stamped. So you jump to the relevant chapter or topic that you care about, and the 360 overview and the key takeaways and subpoints of each meeting. Where Copilot kicks in is, let's say, in my case, I wanted Copilot firstly to generate the minutes of meeting. There's no need for me to do the manual task of writing everything down myself. For a meeting to be, let's say, detailed with all the outcomes, I can simply tell Copilot to generate this information for me. So I can see here the agenda items, discussion points, and any actions that need to be done. Copilot, like I said, has the ability to detect questions. So, which questions were asked by me, by my colleague, maybe things that I don't need to have to ask again after the meeting has concluded. Maybe I skipped the meeting. I would know that the question that concerned me has already been tackled by uh, myself or my colleague or so on and so forth. And the translation aspect that I told you about could be done on the go, just like I mentioned here. No need to revert back to any other Copilot experience. You can simply ask Copilot right here, right now, immediately to translate it to the desired language that you're looking for. So this is how Copilot starts to operate in Teams. It is consolidating all this information from the session that was held with users inside or outside your organization, just like a meeting assistant, directly giving you all the insights that you might be looking for. So that's Copilot in Teams. Now, moving on to Copilot in, let's say, Outlook, something I want to show. So let me just pull out my own Outlook. So we could use this one. So you can see here, again, Copilot, up top to the right, always accessible from within each application. Maybe suggested prompts are some things that might be most useful and most commonly used across all the users that have Copilot. As an example, let's say, which emails need urgent replies? Something that I might ask Copilot to do. This is something that I've seen leveraged quite often. Why? Because you have a whole lot of emails that you receive each day. You don't get the chance to tackle every and each one of them. You want Copilot to help you understand which are important, which aren't important, so you know how to prioritize your actions and start to go about, let's say, executing the tasks related to each actual email. So I have this RFP I need to respond to. I have an internal timeline that I need to adjust. The technical clarifications for something, other things that I need to do. And the next step is recommended by Copilot to start with this first email that it mentioned. These are again applicable features of Copilot in Outlook. On top of that, when I'm actually asking something of Copilot in Outlook, maybe I created an agent that helps me interpret my emails. Maybe that's the goal of the agent. It helps me extract all the latest, let's say, budget updates that are shared internally with me. And this agent is dedicated for that specific cause. So I can add this agent, okay, to my chat and ask the question of Copilot to track any email from my donors using this agent, which has the purpose of, let's say, compiling this donor information and giving me the relevant output that I might be looking for, which is a consolidated sheet with the latest payments from each donor. You are interacting with agents in Outlook along with your emails to get the specific answer that you're looking for. A combination that is only present within Copilot M365. This is why we're leveraging it in our tools. Again, I can access all my chats right here. Another example of what I can do is maybe can you find a time to meet with Steve on Thursday? Let's say since it's already kind of half day, Steve on Friday. I don't want to go about checking Steve's calendar or asking him when he's available. I don't want to know when my own time is available or booked. I just want Copilot to do this task for me. See the latest day. Maybe I'm full on Friday. It might suggest another day. Maybe it sees that Thursday is something that actually still fits into my schedule. So I would give it this information and it'll ask me the slots that might be the best fit for both of us. So Friday 11 to 11:30 works for both of us, or the 3:30 to 4. There have two suggestions between the half hour split between 3 to 4. I'm happy with this one. I can send the email invite just with the click of the button. No need to do that manual task. Now, this is all great, but another powerhouse feature of Copilot is actually using Copilot in terms of replying to emails. One thing that I usually do, if it's a long email chain, I don't want to go about starting to read everything. Maybe every single point mentioned in this email is important, but usually you might see that there is a bit of unnecessary information in some of your emails. So that being said, I can simply start to tell Copilot to draft a summary of this email right from the email chain so I don't have to read through the whole thing. I get the picture behind what is being discussed right here, and I can start to generate my reply. If I want to generate my reply, and I think most of the time when I do generate my emails, I either tell Copilot to draft what I want for me, or I write it down myself and I tell Copilot to change it for me. Let's look at the first option. Let's say I want Copilot to draft an email. So I tell it to tell Naji, my colleague, that I need the meeting scheduled ASAP with the report of Q3 ready, and no more delays to occur. Very rough typing, unstructured. But now is where Copilot could use its AI capabilities to give me the response I might be looking for. Any changes that I might need to make, we have to do again right here within Outlook. I can suggest changes, and then I'm good to go. If I want to keep it, we can keep it. If not, if I'm not happy with it, then I can stop and go about making the changes I want through, let's say, auto rewriting or so on and so forth. This is how you can leverage Copilot in Outlook, for example. I hope you got the picture of Outlook. That's something again that is important. Features that I mentioned today are very important to utilize across your M365 environment. Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen. Steve, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. That's really insightful. I'll go back. I'll just present a couple of final bits before we sign out. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left. While you've been presenting, I've been frantically going through the questions and answering as many of those as I can. Hopefully, I've covered most of them off. I know there was another piece there that you was going to talk about onboarding Copilot and how to deliver value from the product. Fortunately, we don't have time for that today. We will share the slides and include that. And if anybody has any questions about that element, we might run another session and we'll make everybody aware of that. Just wanted to cover an offer that we have for charities and a little bit about us as an organisation. As I mentioned earlier, we are a Microsoft partner. We're one of few Microsoft partners that delivers every single Microsoft service that they provide end to end. We're a global organisation. A couple of months ago, we was just voted the largest Microsoft partner in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which we're really proud of. My recommendation to anybody that's looking to work with AI or any Microsoft service is always look for these specializations. Microsoft have 2 levels of specialization. So on the left-hand side, you will see 6 accreditations spanning services like data and AI, security, Microsoft Dynamics. These are accreditations that denote that the partner that you're working with has a certification and a skill in that particular area. So if we look at data and AI, we were one of the first partners to obtain this certification over 2 years ago. And obviously it's becoming more and more popular now. Once you have those 6 baseline accreditations, Microsoft then has specializations, which denotes an expert level in that particular field or area. And as you can see, we have a number of these as well. So, from a Microsoft perspective, we're very, very well covered. I mentioned earlier that we do work a lot with the charity sector. And one of the things that we do is, as we are a Microsoft direct partner, Microsoft provide us a commission on licensing. And what we do is any charity partner, we will provide a discount on top of the Microsoft charity discount rate for any licensing or Azure spend that you may have. So if you want to know that you're using the right type of license, you want to make a saving on your license, please visit this landing page, put your details in there, and we can make sure that you're firstly on the right license for you and the most cost-effective license. As I say, we're yet to work with a charity where we haven't been able to save them money on their Microsoft spend. So if that's of interest to anybody, there are a couple of questions, Ray. As I said, I've been going through most of them. One of them we've had is in relation to if a meeting was set up by somebody externally, can they access the Copilot features?
So I was tackling them while you were presenting. So yeah, the workaround if you are an external user is to tell that person that set the meeting to give you permission as a co-organizer inside the meeting settings. So that's if you want best workaround, that way it'll look like you are part of their organization and also the person that set the meeting themselves. The rest of the questions that I'm going through, I think you encompassed and answered them perfectly, Steve. And I'm just checking if something hasn't been tackled to tackle it myself, but I think you got it spot on.
Perfect. The other one that I thought was quite an interesting one, I have answered it, but just for the purpose, if people have a CRM, so something like Salesforce or some type of software that they're using, can they connect that to Copilot or a Copilot agent?
Correct, you can. Then you would start to leverage Copilot Studio, which is something that you add on top of Copilot M365, which has the ability through third-party connectors to call the data from Salesforce, use the agent that you created on Copilot M365. You would chat and interact with the agents, sort of like the ones that I built today, and you would get the relevant answers to the questions related to those types of data within that third-party system, such as Salesforce.
Perfect. Look, I know we've run over by a couple of minutes. Hopefully, everybody found that session of use. If anybody has any questions at all, or if they'd like the link to the landing page where we can optimize your licensing or Azure spend, by all means, there's my email address there. Feel free to reach out to me. If there's no more questions, I think all that's left for me to do is, Ray, thank you for your time today, and thanks for everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.